my goal in life is to add value to people and create those relationships in your personal and business life. Because, I mean, when you start really cultivating and growing meaningful connections and relationships in personal and business life, I feel like that's where the magic happens in life because you start building that community and start adding value to them. Not only does your business start to grow, but like you as a person are being becoming fulfilled as well.
What's up, entrepreneurs? This is your host, Skylar Schisler of the show, The Entrepreneur Theory. And today we have Carol Aubuchon, who's going to join us today, and she's going to be talking about digital marketing. She's had an amazing journey of becoming an entrepreneur through the years. And I'm really excited for her to share a story because I've been able to be a part of that journey. And I know that she's going to add a lot of value today. I know that she has a lot of great things to say, but she's such a humble person, and she's not the kind of person that will, shout from the rooftops her own successes. She definitely will not get on her own soapbox. But what I can tell you is the information that she has and the journey that she's traveled over the last 6, 7 years. Actually, it's more like 10 years now being an entrepreneur. She's definitely going to bring some golden nuggets today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Carol Aubuchon with Dream Life Marketing Agency to the show.
Hey guys.
Welcome. Oh man, I'm so excited to have you on the show today, and I'm excited for people to get to know you. Man, I love how we met the first time. You know what I mean? Like the very first
It's
time. Not
wild.
now. Yeah, not how we were introduced. Right, we were introduced in business together to collaborate on a marketing business, and but there was a training, and I told you got to get your butt to the training, and you were already in Florida, and man, why don't you tell everybody the rest of the story because definitely pulled you out of your comfort zone the first time you met me.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, we met online. So I never met you other than a Zoom call and a phone call. And you were like, "Hey, what are you doing this weekend?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going to be in Florida on this side of Florida." And you were like, "Oh, awesome. I'm going to be in Miami on the other side of Florida." I was like, "Oh, okay." So you were like, "Well, why don't you just come on over to the training?" And I was in Florida at another training, another marketing gig, I guess. And I had already driven to Florida completely by myself, so that alone was out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But to drive 6 hours to the other side of Florida to meet a complete stranger was terrifying. And I drove overnight. I left one side of Florida um, about 10 o'clock that night and drove to the other side in Miami and landed there about probably 2 o'clock in the morning. Knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I'm Carol." And Skylar's wife answered the door and was like, "Just come on in. Here's a blow up mattress and we'll get to know each other in the morning." It was completely out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But, 6, 7 years later, it's probably one of my favorite stories.
Oh, it's definitely one of those moments where you're like, what am I getting myself into? But that's what, being an entrepreneur, that's what being a business owner, stepping out on faith. Sometimes that's what it looks like. And I love sharing that story because that's what it takes sometimes is, meeting somebody who might be a stranger in your life at that time, but they're probably going to fight for you maybe even harder than some of your loved ones, some of your own family members. And I've had many people, treat me that exact same way. Um, one of the so to give a little bit of context, we were in a network marketing company, and you had just signed up with one of the guys that had just joined the team, and you were already in another company. And why did you? I guess the night that you came over, there was a deciding factor that had happened. Do you mind sharing a little bit of the deciding factor, and then I'll kind of elaborate a little bit more on the story?
In that first company that I was with, I was already kind of at a crossroads when I reached that point, and I had lost a lot of leadership in that company. I remember going to that event with that company, and I didn't even feel comfortable sitting in the stands with my leader. I went and sat with some other girls that I had just met, and I just didn't really feel like I was welcome there, or like I had a lot of um, guidance there. And just from the beginning of our conversations on the phone before we got to Florida, you know, you were like very matter of fact of this is where we're going, and I'm gonna help take you there with me. Like it was, I'm here to guide you along the way from night one, and you were very transparent with me, and you built that trust very quickly with me. And so, and on, you know, in life, but especially entrepreneurship, it can be lonely, and sometimes you have to jump. And that night, I guess I just had a lot of things telling me kind of like which path to take. And that experience with that one company wasn't what I was looking for. And
Hmm.
so it was like, just jump, and maybe this next one is exactly what you are looking for. And thankfully, the next company was something I'd never done before. That company just gave me so much hope because you were literally selling like experiences and happiness to people. And for me, I needed that at the time. And so I'm so grateful that I listened to my gut and I got in that car and I drove those few hours.
Hmm. One of the reasons why I pushed so hard to get you to that training was because of some skills that maybe you weren't quite aware that you had. And one was you were always willing to ask. And even though it might scare you to death to ask the question at that point in your life, you were still willing to ask questions. And when you meet somebody who's willing to soak up knowledge and they're humble enough to ask questions, you can really form them. And when you get to coach somebody, they're always a pleasure to work with. And I always told people in that business, if they were going to partner with me, that they had to be a pleasure to work with. So first and foremost, uh, to this day, you're a pleasure to work with, and I really appreciate that. The second thing was is your willingness to go above and beyond and push your boundaries, because your comfort zone equals your money zone, right? That was something that we taught back in the day, and we used to write it on people's arms and say CZ equals MZ. I learned that through the millionaire mindset, and they would actually run around with that, written on their arm for weeks at a time. And the reason why you are where you are today is because you were able to get out of your comfort zone. And I just want to give you props. I want to commend you for your efforts, because the next portion of your story just gets greater and it gets fun, right?
I think that night was honestly just such a trajectory in my life. I really see
Hmm.
that night because before that I was so timid and I was so scared to talk to people or
Hmm.
push that comfort zone because I had just always been in this bubble. And it was like you kind of pushed me and gave me permission
Hmm.
to jump and get out of that comfort zone. And I mean, from that night on, I mean, I have been pushing the limits to extremes, really. And I
Absolutely.
never would have dreamed that before.
Yeah. So, you mentioned, years ago, and you also mentioned, in your bio for this show that um, entrepreneurship has always been kind of something that you've always had your eye on, even as a young age. Do you mind elaborating on, how you, or when did you know you were an entrepreneur, basically?
Yeah, I feel like I just always kind of was pushed that direction. My parents, I mean, they did well. We were middle class, just like most families. I had everything I needed, but I couldn't go to church camp because we couldn't afford that like extra $500 for me to go on a trip. And
Hmm.
so from like 11, I started babysitting, cutting grass. Was cutting most of the neighbors' grass at that point. I remember in middle school cutting people's grass, babysitting as many babies as I could, so that I could earn the money to go on these trips. And it was just really I guess, instilled in me at such a young age that if you work hard, then you can get the things you want. And then I also love, like, those people that I babysat for 15 years ago, 18 years ago, I still talk to them. And the fact that I was able to make that kind of impact on someone and to see it now so many years later, that's pretty powerful too.
That's so
And
cool.
that's really instilled that at such a young age.
Yeah, and that's I think one of the reasons why you're so successful today is uh, you know that what you do makes an impact on people, and it will come back later on in your journey, right? It may not it may not show up when you think it does, but it always shows back up, right?
I remember when shortly after I met you, I was in corporate sales and never thought I would ever go back to babysitting, but I wasn't very happy in corporate sales. And so I was like, well, I can always go back and babysit, and it's always a side gig you can fall back on. Um, but then I ended up turning that into that side gig where I had one family for picking their kids up every day. $200 a week turned into, a multiple 5-figure a month business that I never dreamed would happen. That really was something that I started implementing when I was in middle school.
And that's so cool because there's going to be so many families and so many people that listen right now, and they're thinking of their young daughters or even their young sons of how do I prep them for success later down the road. And what I'm hearing is a great foundation is that work in service, taking care of other people. Of course there's a transaction of money for your services, but it's really where you get to learn to take care of other people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And really that responsibility at a young age too,
Mm.
um, the responsibility of taking care of an infant when you're 11 years old is pretty, that's a lot of trust to put on an 11-year-old,
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, I had to manage that money too if I wanted
Hmm.
to actually go on those trips. And so there was a lot of life skills that I learned in that I didn't see what's happening at the moment, but 20 years later, I can definitely see it coming
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. And so now let's fast forward to you make the transition from the babysitting and the personal care business, and then when did you make the jump into social media and into digital marketing?
Well, through network marketing, I'd been in network marketing for a few years. And so I saw the impact about 8 years ago of what social media can truly do in the sales and marketing world when I made my first sale to a stranger on Instagram. And I remember just like, I cannot believe that this stranger just bought something from me.
Wow.
And so that was really powerful for me. And then, as everyone had to pivot during COVID, I was babysitting one of my regulars that I had. And in quarantine, I quarantined with this family. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, and I could watch the children while, doing things on my computer. And so I took a lot of courses on digital marketing, social media marketing, how to really implement that.
Hmm.
And so in 2020, I was starting to feel burned out in the caregiving industry. Not that I didn't love anybody or I wouldn't, I was like devoted my life to them. And so, but I was starting to burn out. And so I made a decision during quarantine that I was going to be done at the end of 2021 when one of my kids started kindergarten. And so 2020, I worked, I got clients, I started building my clientele with caregiving and on social media. So I would be caregiving at someone's house, and like during nap times or things like that, I was sitting there building my social media business. And so about a year and a half after I first made that decision, at the very end of 2021, I stepped away from my caregiving business and went full time with social media.
That's
And
awesome.
I even moved cities. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say to go to that extreme, but I'm telling you, I push the limit to the extreme sometimes. And, God just took me on this journey where it was like, okay, you're done with caregiving. Let's move you out here. And I'm going to really provide for you and push your limits out here in another city where you have nothing but to trust me and follow this if this is what, I mean, it's what he was pushing me to do. And so he gave me no other choice but to go all in at the
Yeah.
end of 2021.
Oh, I'll never forget. Um, Through a lot of your journey, you'd always been, what do I want to say? You've always had roommates, right? You've always had to share a space with somebody because money's been tight, and you're always trying to reinvest your money and grow things. I'll never forget that was the time when you were able to kind of break out on your own. And I remember you calling me and you were just so excited that you were able to afford your own place and you're on track to making six figures. And, it's not about, Carol is the greatest because she makes six figures, but that was a real pivotal moment in your life when you realized there was literally something to this and people believed in your abilities, right?
Hmm. Well, I mean, quarantine for me was, and I know that so many people's lives changed during that, but for me, being stuck um, in a house, in a three-bedroom apartment with and I telling you, I love this family, but being quarantined in that place, and then at the time I didn't have an apartment, I had moved back home, and so, and then my mom was telling me like, you can't come to my house because I'm scared of getting COVID. And so I wasn't allowed back home. And then I was kind of stuck in this three-bedroom apartment, sleeping on a couch, and I felt like I had nowhere to go. And so it was kind of like, okay, you have to figure out a way to um, get your own place. And a few months, except I guess about September that year, the opportunity um, brought itself to me and I jumped on it. And like you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about a few years before that, I remember calling you, telling you we got an eviction notice and we're going to get evicted if we don't figure out a way to pay this rent right now. And so then, a few years later to be able to get an apartment completely on my own with no co-signer, nothing. I mean, it was all mine. And to be able to have that space after not having anything or anywhere to go or somewhere to call yours was just
Mm-hmm.
everything for me. And
Absolutely.
now I live in the nicest place I've ever lived in. And I think that if I hadn't believed in myself or pushed myself back then, that I wouldn't be where I am today.
Absolutely. So, okay, in your journey of being a business owner, how important is managing your finances?
Very important.
Absolutely. And how big of a
I've been
struggle was
an
it? Because
uh,
you had to learn some concepts you'd never learned before, right?
there's not a lot of security in entrepreneurship, and I had always had jobs where usually two or three at a time because I accumulate them, and so I always had multiple streams of income. I was working
Mm-hmm.
nonstop, but I always had that security of if I work this hour, I'm going to have that money at the end of the week. And as an entrepreneur, even though you're putting in the hours 24/7, you don't always get that money right away. And so you have to kind of save and put away for a rainy day and sustain yourself because you don't necessarily have that security like
Yeah.
you would in a 9 to 5 job. Even though there's more value, I feel in entrepreneurship, sometimes the financial burden is there.
Mm-hmm. It truly is. I'll never forget receiving that phone call. I was standing on a street corner in downtown Cheyenne. I had stepped out of a meeting, take your phone call, and I'll never forget the concern in your voice of, man, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. And it was a really tough time to hear that from you. But at the same time, um, you know, I want people to understand when she called me, I wasn't going to bail her out. She needed to feel the pain because that pain is what motivated her. But we talked about some concepts, right? We talked about ways to manage your money. We talked about zero net balancing. We talked about paying down some credit cards. We talked about how to really break up your income. And I remember you just having somebody be there and give some guidance. I remember that being a awakening moment for you. I know it wasn't easy because nobody did it for you. It's all, but here's the thing:
Yeah.
it's all yours. You can't say, "Oh, well, I'm here today because so and so bailed me out." No, you took the concepts, you listened, you applied them, and now looks a lot different, right? And
Completely different.
and being an entrepreneur, the reason why a lot of people don't succeed is because they're not willing to learn and use what their mentors or what people in their life are telling them. They're not willing to humble themselves and say, well, maybe I should listen to these people, right? I remember so many times in my career where I had to finally just shut up and listen to the teacher. And it's a humbling moment to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, I knew I never could call you for, to sugarcoat anything, or I knew you were never going to bail me out. And that was never why I would call you. It was just,
Right.
you were kind of you'd been there. And so I knew if I
Yeah.
called you, you'd be like, yeah, I've been there. Like, this is how you get out of it, and you figure it out. And I never got in that situation again. I never got another eviction notice after that.
Because you felt the pain. And now you'll remember what that feels like and you never want to go back there again, right?
Yeah, I still have that eviction notice in my little memory box,
Well, I
because
think you should.
that was definitely a pivotal time in my life.
Yeah, well, when you get that 10,000 square foot house, or you end up getting three or four properties scattered across the United States, I think that'd be a great little piece of artwork on all the walls, right?
Right? Yeah.
You broke out of your shell. You've traveled. Tell me about the first time you spoke in front of a group of people.
That was also terrifying. I had definitely, I've been in sales, and so I've networked, and I've done BNI meetings and things like that,
Yeah.
where you get up and you say your name in front of 30 people. But there was one time where, and it was kind of interesting how that played out too, because it was March of I believe 2018 or 2017. And someone had told me, one day I can see you speaking at the Later Center. And I was like, oh, not me, because I don't speak in front of people. Well, if we weren't going to have a training at the Lander Center a couple weeks later, and I was definitely pushed out of my comfort zone, and there really was no reason for me to get up and speak that time. But they asked for volunteers, and I was terrified. I was shaking. My heart was pounding, but I was like, "This is my chance." And so I raised my hand, went up to the stage, and there were probably 500 to 600 people in the room, and got up there, told my story. And it was definitely impactful for people, which then was to, for me, to be able to tell a situation or a story, and then to see other people really get something from that. That that's just everything for me, and that really pushes me to continue to tell my story. Or because if you can help someone overcome something with your story, there's just nothing better than that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
But it was
agree.
terrifying.
It always is. It's those butterflies, right? So then a couple weeks ago, didn't you just get done doing your first workshop?
Well, that wasn't my first one. I did one
Oh,
last year, for what female entrepreneurs. I did one last year, and got up and spoke and did classes for several with female entrepreneurs. And I've been asked to come back and speak again this year. But yeah, it's like once you start one, then you just kind of start putting on the universe that I'm
hmm.
open to this, and so now I'm scheduling podcasts and speaking gigs, and it's
Yeah,
crazy where I've come in just a few years.
it's amazing to watch, and it's all you. Sure, you've had some guidance, but that's what we all need, right? We all need some guidance. Um, Going into the digital marketing space, once you took some courses, you did a lot of research, started really crafting your skills and your abilities. Um, how did you get started from that point? I know that there's people right now that are listening to this podcast that are saying, "Man, I'd love to be a digital marketer. I know I'm pretty good at social media, but how do I turn that into an income?"
I started talking about it, and it was kind of something where it was like I couldn't stop talking about it. I was telling everyone I knew, and My very first client was a lady that I was babysitting for, and she was a real estate agent. And I was like, just give me a chance. And she's still my client today, almost 3 years later.
Wow.
And from her saying yes, I went to my next one. And now, one thing, I've been in sales for a long time, and so I can make a sale. And I just started asking people, like, would you give me a chance? Would you give me a chance? And then, once you start doing other people's things for them and you start doing a really good job, and then the social media started converting to sales, they started referring me out. And I own a digital marketing business, but most of my business comes from word of mouth and networking in person myself.
Networking is such a big deal. When I joined BNI many years ago, I loved being able to surround myself with other business owners. And if you guys aren't familiar with BNI, it's Business Networking International, and it's a way to basically train other business owners to be your salespeople. And you pass referrals and leads. And the reason why I like that model is because when I share my concepts to somebody who's already in business, they understand, they get it. And most of the time, these owners are also very reputable people that are great with responsibility. So when they say, hey, you're the guy or gal to go with for a service, it usually bears some weight. So how important is networking, and what's a fun little story in networking, to like that you meet somebody and then it's gone somewhere completely different than you would have ever imagined.
Um, well, that's kind of how I got to Knoxville. Um, I actually met her online, so this kind of goes to online networking. And I had met Amber, which you know her too,
Hmm.
about 5 years, 6 years ago now, online. And she had seen what I had done on social media. She knew that I had started my own social media business, and she told an acquaintance of her that she had met networking. And she hired me almost on the spot to do her social media. And then about a week or two later, she referred me to her mom. And then a couple of weeks later, she referred me to one of her partners that was a builder. And I mean, within 6 months, I was doing her mom's, her clients, her friends, her business partners. I was doing about 6 different accounts, just started from that one first domino. And like I said, I love to network. And so when I got up here, they had actually opened an office, and they had asked me to move up here to help them open that office. And I was like, and it was a co-working space. So I was like, all right, to grow this thing, we have to network. And I started networking every day of the week, and started growing. And I moved here to Knoxville at the end of 2021, moved here on a Friday. I was at a networking event on that Monday, and I have been networking my way through Knoxville ever since. I now um, lead a female networking group. I have, um, I've built, in the beginning, I networked so much and had gotten so many referrals that I almost couldn't sleep at night. I was working 24/7 because I was doing business for everyone. And then like I said, I've been in Knoxville for a year just from networking. My birthday in October had a guest list of over 100 people.
Mm.
That was just from networking in Knoxville. And I moved here knowing about 2 people. And now I have an entire community of entrepreneurs, of other women. I mean, it's networking online or in person is absolutely, or can be, very life changing if you do it correctly and you cultivate and build those relationships.
Hmm.
Because now I have an entire community of well over 100 people here in Knoxville in just one short year of being here.
So what's your secret to networking then? I mean, you're not, when you walk into a room, you're not the loudest person, you're not gonna just steal the show, but I think that might be part of your success. But what do you say to people when you're um when you're networking?
I'm very much myself. And I mean, when I first go into a networking room, I'm very uncomfortable. I'm usually nervous, just like everyone else. So even though I love it, but I still get those scary butterflies too. Um, but I think what makes me successful at it is I walk in the room, like you said, I'm not the loudest person in the room. I don't want everyone's attention on me, but I'm there to create relationships. And so if I'm there meeting you and we're saying, "Oh, my name's Carol, I'm Skylar, nice to meet you," it's just me and you. So it'll be a conversation. It's just me and you making that connection. And my goal is to grow that connection. And so
Hmm.
I really make that first connection, try to be meaningful so that you'll remember me when we walk out of that door. And, my goal is to add value to you, whether I meet you that one time or we become best friends. My
Hmm.
goal is to add value to your life. And so I take that into every single person that I meet. And so I think it's a little bit different than people that go in there and they're like, "Hey, this is me. This is what I do. This is how I do it. This is how I can help you." And kind of more what they're going to get out of it. I kind of go in there and more about what I can offer you and how I can help you grow your business.
Hmm. I think another thing. I mean, I've had dinner with you. I've been on trips with you. I've sat in meetings with you. So as far as most people go, who's listening to this, they're just meeting you for the first time. But I know you very well. And one of the things that I think you should touch on is the etiquette when you're meeting people for the first time in a networking event. I think you're really good at it. When I first started networking, especially for like chamber of commerce events, they'll have beers there and they'll have chicken wings, and it was almost like an all-you-could-eat buffet, uh, and I didn't start having success at those events until I started putting the food down and stopped drinking the beer. Right? Can you touch on some etiquette? How are you handling those either awkward moments, or what kind of etiquette are you using to make sure that you're still adding that value?
Well, when I first learned how to network and started networking, I was working for a newspaper and I was doing outside sales for that newspaper. And so we were at every chamber event because, every event wanted a newspaper there. And our saying as a newspaper was, "We work for the newspaper, we don't want to be in the newspaper." And so we would kind of hold ourselves to a different standard than most people, I think, where we made sure we always dressed professionally. We didn't wear tight clothes or clothes that didn't really flatter us. And so when we walked in, we were very professional. Um, we we didn't go straight to the bar. It's fine if you want to walk around with a drink, but this is not the place to get hammered or to get, just ridiculous while you're trying to meet these people. Because again, you are making first impressions. And so, yes, you can go and have something in your hand, but you're not there that's not the place for it.
Hmm.
So, yeah, and I do typically go get something to drink because I like to have something in my hand. It's kind of like, what do I do with my hands? And it's like we have
Hmm.
something in there, you can kind of channel it, your energy into that drink.
Hmm.
And so I would walk around and meet everyone very professionally. I would look them in the eye. I learned that ever since I was a little too, where if you're having a conversation, you want to look that person in the eye. And I think that's taken me far as well. But look someone in the eye, shake their hand, and walk around like you do with confidence and a little bit of authority in what you do in the industry that you're in, um, and then make them feel valued and let them know that you're here to add value to their life.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So you're
which
you're
I learned
talking.
from you. I feel like the one thing that I learned from Skylar Schisler is
Mm,
add value to people's lives.
mm.
And I mean, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. My goal is to do that, and I can 100% owe that to you. I mean, every sales call we've ever done, you're like, "How can I add value to your life?"
That's just it, and I appreciate that, and I'm grateful that you picked up on that. If that could be my legacy, my job's done. Um, you were making me kind of laugh, and I was having a hard time focusing because when you were talking about having something in your hand, you don't want to have that Ricky Bobby moment where you're like, I don't know what to do with my
That's what I
hands,
always
right?
think of. Yes.
you know, and having a prop is good. Having an annoying prop is not okay, right? I see a lot of
Right.
people, roll up a newspaper or a magazine while they're at an event, and they'll hit their hand or something. Be conscious of what you're doing at the events. How you do anything is how you do everything, and that's exactly what you're talking about with your first impressions. So you've gained these clients, and you're trying to add value. What tactics or what strategies are you seeing work the best in the marketplace when it comes to marketing someone's business?
Relationships. Um,
So
you
glad you
are
said that.
on, it's everything. And yes, you're online and you can post all day long. You can post those static posts that say, I offer these 10 services, come buy them. No one's going to buy them unless they like you, know you, and trust you. And so in today's world, you've seen TikTok and all of those videos go completely viral. But the ones that really go viral and the ones that are really the influencers and the businesses that are cultivating this space right now and that are actually converting those followers into sales are the ones that are focusing on building those relationships and those connections online. And so those are the ones that are being real and authentic online and sharing their story. They're sharing their lives with you. They're sharing, what it's like to be at their job, or, if like if whether you're a real estate agent or you're selling makeup or you have a doctor's office, it's all sales and marketing. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you're online being authentic and you're connecting with them and showing how you can add value to them and creating those relationships, that's when the sales start converting and when those people start to trust you and know you through the screen, and then, start coming back over and over to buy from you.
I'm so glad you said that because that's something that I've struggled with in my career and in my life, especially with social media. Is I remember the first time I got on Facebook, it was about 2009. And at that time, I had a mediocre construction business, but I wanted to show how successful I was, what I've done with my life since high school. And it was kind of like that feeling of like your 10-year high school reunion. You wanted to prove people that you weren't this big screw up
Yeah,
because
thankfully mine was in a pandemic, so it got canceled. So I missed that opportunity.
well, you would have shined like a star, have no doubt. And you would have networked the room like crazy. You probably would have signed everybody up as clients.
Probably.
Darn it, missed opportunity. But um, I really struggled after, my network marketing career came to an halt and we're traveling across the states. And I made a Facebook video to kind of launch the entrepreneur theory. And I remember talking about if I'm not willing to tell the whole truth, and I'm not willing to share any of my story because I would literally be a jerk to my family, right? And then we would go out to dinner and I would post a picture of us having a great time. But literally 30 minutes before that, I was not very nice. And I was struggling with some parts of my life during that time. And I still struggle with that. Now, what's funny is I can come on a podcast like this and I can share, the deepest and some of the craziest things I've ever learned. And on stage in front of 10,000 people, I will cry like a baby and I will share those concepts. But if I have to make a post on Facebook, I will overanalyze it. And I struggle with that. So, what are some tips that a business owner can find some confidence in making those posts and showing their story to get other people on board with their message?
It takes some practice. No one's very first video is going to be amazing, and you're going to mess up, and you're probably going to redo that same video 200 times. But I can tell you, literally from experience, there was one time someone asked me to make a video, and now I coach people and coach my clients to make these videos. But it's uncomfortable until you get to do it over and over. And this one time in particular, someone asked me for a testimonial video, and I literally sat in that bathroom with my phone propped up on this crazy mountain of things to get the right angle. And I literally did that video over 100 times. And they all look the same. And yes, there were mess ups. I said, pause a few times. But it was real and it was authentic. And at the end of the day, that's what people want. And I know in your head you're overthinking all of it, but just um, try to step out of that comfort zone and be yourself, because your people are going to find you.
Mm-hmm.
And as you start making those videos and you start posting them, they're going to get better and better. And so by the time that, before you know it, you'll probably start making videos because you enjoy it. And it just
Mm-hmm.
takes practice. It's like building a muscle, just like anything else. But probably the biggest thing that I tell my clients is that just be yourself, because your people and your clients are going to find you and resonate with you. And that's who you're
Mm-hmm.
looking for anyway.
Such a great point. Not only is it okay to be okay with your story and where you are in life, but it's okay to love yourself for who you are. You look the way you look. You dress the way you
Yeah.
dress. One of the things that I always get caught up on when we're recording these is I always thought my mouth was really straight when I talked. And then when I started seeing myself on camera all the time, I realized, wow, there's one side of my mouth always goes up a little higher than the other. And you don't realize, but everybody else has already seen that and they still love you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real humbling moment to go, wow, despite my lip curls like Elvis Presley sometimes, people still love me. And I think that that's
Exactly.
great, you know,
And nothing
and
else, if you get a hater, delete them, block
yeah,
them,
yeah, they're not
and
your
move
cup of tea
on.
anyway.
Yeah, you don't want to work with that person anyway.
Mm-hmm,
So the person that you do want to work with and your dream client, they're going to love you no matter what.
mm-hmm. So now we've got multiple waves of social media, right? I mean, there's so many ways to get your name out there. There's so many avenues. Can you explain maybe in a campaign? I don't want you to give away your secret sauce, but the difference maybe where how you'd want to promote like on Facebook versus Instagram versus TikTok. I know we've had that conversation and I love your take on it.
Well, thankfully, we do live in a time where they have the short videos, and the short videos do go out everywhere. But the best way that I can describe the different platforms is, especially between Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, which I really feel like most of the people that are listening are probably on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is Facebook is really there to really nurture and build up your warm market. On Facebook, if you're not sharing a post or other people aren't sharing your post, that Facebook post is just sitting there on your page, and it's just there for your warm market. It's not going out to millions of people like a post on Instagram would with hashtags. Now, thankfully, we do have those short videos, the reels on Facebook that are going out to more people, that will kind of bring that cold market in. But Facebook really is used for um, nurturing those people unless your posts are being shared. And so I um, take Instagram and TikTok, and with using hashtags and some strategy behind that, is where you can really reach cold market, and then you can bring them over and put them, try to get them to watch your stories or bring them over to Facebook, where you can really create a community and nurture them and on Facebook. Because Facebook groups is where you can start bringing people in and creating a community. They can talk to each other, they can talk to you, you can put out content just for them. So I just really focus on Facebook being for warm market, and then Instagram and TikTok really being to capture that cold market and then turn them into the warm.
I love that you touched on Facebook groups. It's a really big missed big ticket item in a business, if you ask me. we've had the pleasure with back in the day. We had our own group page that we ran when we had a big sales team, and it was a great place to run promotions. It was a great place to keep people that already are your customer, keep them informed where your company's going, what you're launching, what you're working on. It's also a great way to get feedback and have fun,
Yeah.
build culture. If
Yeah.
you
Culture.
have a business, I really believe that Facebook groups is where it's at. Can you elaborate on anything as far as the Facebook groups? Because I know you mentioned that, and I know so many businesses are missing the ball on that.
Yeah, I actually spoke with a girl a couple weeks ago that started a Facebook group. She was an affiliate marketer, and she just kind of happened to create this group over the last year or so. And now it has 40,000 people in it. And that is her sole form of income, is that 40,000 Facebook group. And so she's able to, share the value in there about her products and how they're changing her life and things like that. But then you also go in there and you see all of the active users that are building relationships and learning about, well, hers in particular is about holistic products. And so they're learning a better way of living without all the chemicals. And if you scroll through it, it's not just her anymore. It's this entire community of 40,000 women that want to live a better chemical free lifestyle. And then, so there's so much value in there for that. But then there's also those product links where then she's making a profit from it. And she happened to kind of stumble her way in that, but now she's created, this crazy um, database of people, really.
And I know there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this go, dang, how do I do that? Well, the first step is you just got to create it. The second step
Is to
is
create it, build
start
those
sharing
relationships.
people. Yep.
Yeah.
And then start sharing with people your ideas, and it will grow. It's amazing
And put
what can
yourself out
happen.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have to make peace with my past and realize, man, I could have taken a lot of those things even further. Um, but I was learning, and I know a lot of people are learning through this process. So if you're a lot like me, and you realize, man, I did have a Facebook group back in the day, and you didn't utilize it, it's all good. Today is a new day. Tomorrow is a new day, and it's a great day to start something like that, right? So you don't have to have this big following to do social media. You can create that following for your business, for your ideas. And it just starts with tomorrow, right? If you just want to get started tomorrow, that's how you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So how how do you have a workflow with 6, 7, 10 clients? It's a lot of social media. And that's a lot
Mhm.
of time staring at a computer screen and generating content. How are you able to manage all of the demand as far as social media goes?
Scheduling. And which I really feel like for me personally is very counterintuitive because my personality is not typically the most organized, and I don't really live my life on a schedule or a plan. The only thing I
Mm-hmm.
plan ahead are my vacations, and that's the way I like it. Um, and so I Now, when I was starting my caregiving business, planning was everything. I had to go pick up this kid at this time, and I had to go pick up the next one at this time across town, like within 20 minutes. And so, my I really believe that that skill set is kind of carried over into this, where planning is everything. I basically left myself in my office when I have a lot of batching days or a lot of creative days, and there was a couple of Saturdays ago where I just locked myself in here and I created content for some of my clients for the whole month. And so I just sat down with a calendar and I planned out what we needed to talk about, what promotions are coming, what basically what's going on in their business, and then what's going on holiday wise or within the current events right now, and just seasonal wise. And I plan that out on I'm a paper person, so I literally have a calendar in front of me, put out all the dates that they need, and then I go in and transfer that into content, create the content, edit the videos that they sent me or the content they sent me to make it personal, and then I schedule it out on my social media calendar, the scheduler that actually posts it. And that honestly is the secret sauce to having a social media presence while living your life. You have to plan and you have to schedule out your content, or you're just going to be sitting there all day long and like not knowing what to post. You're going to be there at 5 o'clock, stressed out, being like, I need to post something today, but I don't know where to start. So planning and scheduling is really everything to keep that stress down on social media and keep that like work life balance really when it comes to social media and then your actual job.
I think you just blew some people's minds. I think there's plenty of business owners out there that just realized they can schedule posts.
Yeah.
They didn't even know that was a feature. You know, that was revolutionary for me. I still struggle with social media. I still struggle with coming up with ideas because it's your baby, and you get paralyzed in trying to be perfect. And something that Carol offers with her services and a lot of other social media and marketing agencies offer is they're not emotionally tied to your product. They're not
Mm-hmm.
emotionally tied to your story. They just want to tell your story. And in return, it actually becomes greater and bigger than you ever could imagine because you're not stifling its growth.
Yeah,
And
I've
what a
gotten that feedback from several of my clients where they're like, when I was doing it, they were like so stressed out because their hair wasn't perfect, or they were sitting there just critiquing every little thing. But when they send it to me and I'm putting it together, I'm not judging you the way you're judging yourself. I'm like, oh, you look beautiful in this picture. Let's put it out there. And so I'm just sitting there and posting it. And like you said, I don't have that emotional tie to it. And I mean, it's going to look good and it's going to be pretty, but there's no emotional tie to it. It's just to get your story out there, like you said. And that's a lot of feedback that I've gotten from my clients. It's allowed them to free themselves from that constant perfectionism. And now they can just get the content out there.
That's just it. I mean, that, folks, if you're not paying attention to what she's saying, you're missing the ball. Like, you're literally swinging the bat at thin air. Like, to have a social media person on staff or hire a social media person to run your content is going to relieve so much stress in your life. And even if, okay, so if a business is kind of getting started and they don't have a lot of capital, they got maybe a couple $100 a month, everybody thinks you got to spend a few $1,000s to take on a social media person. Can they still get help, from a digital marketer?
Absolutely. There's, you know, even for me, I think what I find most joy in my business is helping those newer businesses get out there, and having those like really close. I mean, I'm all about relationships, so I really like building those relationships with the first new entrepreneurs or people trying to get out there, grow it. And so there's people out there that aren't a lot of money, and then there's also those of us that we um, I offer coaching, and so like you may not be able to afford everything right now, but maybe we could do a coaching session, and I could teach you how to do it just to get started, and then once you start growing, then we can work on me coming in and taking over it.
It's a great way to get started. See, it's baby steps, right?
Yeah.
How do you eat a whole elephant? Well, you eat it one bite at a time. The problem is everybody looks at the elephant and goes, that's too big. I can't even think about it. Where do I start? Just one bite at a
Mhm.
time, right? And it's such a funny analogy. I don't get why we use that analogy, but it's so true. Um, okay. So for many years, we'd worked together where I was kind of that that mentor, or I was just kind of showing you the ropes. And you again, your success is yours. All I did was offer a couple of awesome ideas that were taught to me, and I just passed those down, and you ran with them. But as far as humility goes, as far as being vulnerable in those moments where you've got to see me be human,
Mm.
mess up, make fun of myself, screw up, whatever. Um, I really want you to give that perspective, because I want people to understand how that's made our relationship better through the years.
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago on being authentic, and your people are going to find you. It's really hard to be vulnerable, and I mean, I still struggle with it. There is, you know, I've been through a lot of loss in my life that you were there for as well. And I've experienced a lot of kind of tragic moments in my life, but it's not a part of my life that I really talk to a lot openly. But the people that I have shared that story with, or have shared those pieces of my story with, it's helped. It's helped their life become better. Um, and I mean, to be vulnerable with you, the reason why my company is even called Dream Life Marketing is because of the amount of death and loss that I've experienced taught me that life is so short, and um, and you have to live every single day like it's your last one, because we really don't know. And that has been shown to me over and over. And so for me, when I've been able to share that story with people and help people, especially back when we were in the travel industry, I would share my story with them and why I travel everywhere, and why it's such a big part of my life is because of the experience of the grief and the loss. It inspired other people to be like, me too. I can do that too. And when a friend of yours that was a stranger you met online came from teeny tiny town, had never been on an airplane or like anywhere, has now been to, Egypt, Amsterdam, LA, Vegas, New York. And um, so to see the impact that I had on her really helped me open up more and be vulnerable to people, because your story can impact someone, whether you really realize it or not. And so I really think that it's important for us to talk about where we've been instead of just where we
Mm-hmm.
are, where we're going, because
Right.
there's other people that are watching you and learning from you. And those mistakes or those experiences that you had in the past can really make an impact on someone else and help them through, give them hope really in their story and in their journey, and help them get out of and start going the direction and the journey that they're meant to be on as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, that'll definitely be a YouTube short right there. That was gold and 100% the truth.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see you have that impact, especially because I know you had some haters. I know you had some naysayers in your life, and it's a struggle when you have those. But you did a great job of surrounding yourself around people that wanted to go the same direction you were going, and they danced to the same rhythm that you danced to, and that just made your
Mm-hmm.
your journey so much better, and it has grown you so well over the years in your mentality, your spirit, and your ability to shine on others. And that, folks, is some of the secret sauce, and it's not talked about enough. We've been told, I don't know how many times you've heard this around me and the mentors that we've worked with, where they say, you're a product of the five people they hang out with, right? If you hang around five broke people, you'll be the sixth. If you hang around five wealthy people, you'll be the sixth. If you hang around five naysayers, you're gonna be the sixth, right? You are what you hang with. And I just know that if you work with Carol, I know that if you decide to be her friend or network with her, you're going to have positivity in your life, and it will rub off on you, and it'll ultimately make your life better. But it wasn't always that way, right? I mean, so a little bit of context. Carol's from Memphis, Tennessee. There's a lot of crime and there's a lot of hardship in that town, which makes it very hard on family sometimes and makes it very hard on your community. So the fact that you are so positive coming from a background coming from a city like Memphis where crime and the murder rate is pretty high, it's absolutely amazing to see you shine. So I really appreciate your outlook.
Yeah. Um, that one stings a little bit, to be honest. Because um, yeah, I've actually lost a family member. I've lost a few people that way, and we're actually coming up on a trial for my cousin next week, and um, it's that was 5 years ago when that happened, and we're just now finally getting to trial. But it's hard. I mean, some days are hard, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I've used those situations and really used them for good and to
I know you
go
have.
live life to the fullest.
I
Um,
know you have.
and try to love on people harder because of those situations. And um, yeah, I think that the impact that those have had on me could
Hmm.
definitely go either way, but it's always better to have a
Hmm.
positive journey rather than a negative one.
Yeah, there's so many people that might listen to this and go, well, that tomorrow's not promised to you is such a cliche, but
Mhm.
some of us have lived the story of tomorrow is not promised. So uh, I know that you mean everything that you say. So now let's move on to something else that's a little more uplifting. What are your future plans? Like, where are you headed with the digital marketing agency? And do you have any speaking gigs coming up? What are you working on?
Yeah, I actually have another workshop coming up with some female entrepreneurs. I was asked last year, I was asked to come back and speak this year on social media to a room full of female entrepreneurs, which is really exciting. It's such an honor to be asked to come back to something because it means that you did a good job the first time. And so that was just, I was like, I can't believe that you're asking me to come back again. And she was like, yeah, you were pretty much everyone's favorite speaker. And so that really meant a lot to me. So I'm excited for that. That's coming up in May. I recently partnered with a local magazine that I'm working with on their social media right now. So I'm really excited to create community on the digital side. With that, I love print. It was, I started in print. And so when I got the opportunity to work with another publication, I was super excited to take that online. And so I'm excited to grow that and their social media in the community there. I think long term, I really want to um, cultivate my networking skills and kind of start to have my marketing agency, but also move into more PR and helping people that way. Because it seems like I know someone for something. And that feels really good when I'm able to be like, to be able to connect people. And I feel like that's a gift that I've been given, and um,
Mhm.
I'm excited to kind of explore that a little bit more.
Connecting is a really big way to add validation in the marketplace, folks. First right of referral. There's been many times in business where I haven't been able to help a client because it's out of my scope or I'm just too busy and I won't do a great job. But to have the ability to say, you know what, I may not have the answer for you, but I know somebody who does. See, when you're working at your job, you're told if you don't know the answer, go get it answered from somebody else who knows the answer. The same thing applies as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. You don't always have to be everything to everyone. And guess what? Just because you passed the buck, just because you referred somebody to another service, guess what? That doesn't take you out of the equation. That actually gives you way more, uh, well, like I said earlier, validation because you cared enough to make sure the client was taken care of, even though you didn't have the opportunity to profit in that moment. is because they haven't outgrown their personality, they haven't outgrown their insecurities, and they've not learned how to focus on other people rather than themselves. And how do I know that? I'm talking to the choir, baby. I've had to learn those lessons. So, um, yeah, too many times. I've had to eat crow many times in my life. Thank God I've survived it all. Um, so I always ask everybody who's on the show, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur for you?
It's a way that you can impact more people without so much. I feel like there's just nothing holding you back when you're an entrepreneur. You're not tied to a desk or tied to that job anymore. You
Mm-hmm.
can go do whatever you want. And this even goes to people that aren't entrepreneurs. Like in life, you can do whatever you want. And if today you feel like, you want to go change directions or change careers, you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with my journey, I just really followed like what brought me joy. And if I'm if I'm joyful, and that means that I'm able to put joy in someone else's life. And I've added so much value in the caregiving world to where people still ask me to come back now and go watch their kids and stuff like that. But I was able to pivot into something
Mm-hmm.
else that now brings me joy into a completely different industry where I can now add value to more people into different ways. And I really feel like entrepreneurship gives you that freedom to where you can pivot if you need to, and then you're able to add value to more people in multiple different ways than if you were in just a small little cubicle.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some magic that happens when you become an entrepreneur. So, um, I was raised up in carpentry by a mentor, and he had a certain way he did things, and I'm so grateful for what he taught me. Once I broke out on my own, I was able to push the limits of what he taught me and then move on, right? And when I was able to do that, I'll never forget one time these customers wanted a second story on their house. Back it up. They wanted vaulted ceilings inside their house. They had flat ceilings in an older house. And it was the middle of the winter. And the way our schedule worked out was the roof was going to be ready to go. And I'll never forget the owner going like, "It's the middle of December. You guys are going to take my roof off in the middle of December. What if it snows? What if it's going to be cold? What if this is going to be a disaster?" He's just asking all these questions, and he's just not confident. And I said, "Well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to build your new roof out in the street. We're going to block off your street. We're going to build your new roof on the street, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, while we're building them, have another crew cutting the roof off." And so we did all the hurricane ties, we cut them all off, and then we had a crane lift the old roof off, and then we had the crane hook up to the new roof and set the new roof on top. And within a
Wow.
12-hour span, that person had a whole entire new roof, and it was all sheeted and ready to go. And then the next day, the guys were able to get a roof, actually, put shingles on there. And it was amazing to take what I had learned from my first mentor, and then build a business that had a crew of guys that could take it to the extreme. And I'll never forget, that was actually it was a Christmas card one year, for my business, was us craning the new roof on. And we were just so proud to show our clients that, like, look, if you need something done, we'll get it taken care of. And that's what being an entrepreneur is being able to solve massive problems in your own freedom. Now, could that have gone wrong? Yeah. And I was willing to take the responsibility for what could have went wrong, right? So there's a double-edged sword where when you break off and you start to put your ideas out there, just remember you have to take responsibility, right? So I feel like I'm rambling on and I'm on my soapbox, so I apologize for that. But it reminded me of what you just said, which is you get the freedom from being an entrepreneur. So what's your message you want to be left to the world? What does Carol stand for?
I feel like such a broken record. But really, my goal in life is to add value to people and create those relationships in your personal and business life. Because I mean, when you start really cultivating and growing meaningful connections and relationships in personal and business life, I feel like that's where the magic happens in life because you start building that community and start adding value to them. Not only does your business start to grow, but like you as a person are becoming fulfilled as well.
Being able to add that value is such an important deal. I think DJ Barton was on not too long ago and we talked about the customer always has to win. Stop trying to win over your customers by taking from them. You have to win over your customers by giving to them. It's a
Mm-hmm.
service industry,
Yep.
not a taking industry. Oh, so now
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting heated
Yep.
because I see it all day long. Give me, give
Yep.
me, give me, give me money, 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 money. I get it. We all got to eat. I want to make abundant amounts of money too, but
Right.
I'm not going
Well, I
to.
know in my well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I know in my discovery calls um, or my meetings with a brand new prospect, I'm sitting there giving them all of the secret sauce to succeed on social media, and I'm telling them how to go get multiple streams of income and how to monetize their social media or how to monetize a mailing list and all these different things that they had never thought about doing that, and that was all just free information that I gave them, and several of them were like, "I just can't believe you gave
Yeah.
me all that information for free." And I'm like, that's not what this is about. This is about growing your business, whether you do it with me or without you. I still want you to be successful.
Mm, right there, folks. Right there. With or without, I want you to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you're going to go far. That's why you have gone far.
Yep.
That's what separates you. And that's what makes me that's what makes me privileged to be your friend because I know that's how your mind works and you have a great heart because of that. So something that I wanted to touch base on when you say, well, you give the secret sauce and they're kind of surprised that you're kind of laying everything out on how social
Mm-hmm.
media works and how these campaigns work. The thing is you know that they're already maxed out and they don't have time to do it. So
Exactly.
even if you gave them the secret sauce, they're gonna have to pull all nighters. They're gonna have to burn the midnight oil just to even make it work. And we all know
Mm-hmm.
that a business with even 5 employees, you don't have time at the end of the day. You're scrambling just to keep them busy, just to keep their materials, just to keep whatever, just keep the ship moving forward, right? So it's so funny because it's an abundant mentality because we also know uh, they're not going to do it. You can give them all the
Right.
secret sauce, and they're just not going to do it.
Exactly. Well, and that's also not what they're passionate about. They're
Mm,
not in the social media industry. You know, they're a personal trainer or they're a real estate agent or whatever they got into business doing, that was their passion. Social media, most of these business owners, they could care
mm-hmm.
less about social media, but they know that they need to be on it. But I started my business because my passion was social media. And so when we link arms with other people and start delegating to things that you're good
Mm-hmm.
at and start using your gifts, then I can focus on my gifts. That's when we can really start adding value the to their customer, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where they can get that business owner's full energy, and they can really start benefiting within their industry and start helping their clients better while I'm focusing and taking care of my clients.
Stay in your own lane, folks. Right?
Yep.
Stay in your own lane. Be
Yep.
good at what you do.
Yep.
If you're a great cabinet maker, make cabinets. Don't be the social media guy unless you get a passion for it and you want to make cool tutorial videos. That's a whole nother job in itself. You better make enough money to have a crew, right? That's something
Exactly.
that we're working on right now is having a crew run around and collect b-roll because I don't have time. I got 3 kids. I want to do it.
Hmm.
I wish I had more time to do it, but you got to hire out for some of that stuff, and that's absolutely okay. Um, I want to ask you and have a conversation about something that's not talked about in social media very often. And I'll be the first to admit, I have not been good at using LinkedIn. How important is
Yeah.
LinkedIn, as a business owner? And it's kind of a hidden gem. If you're good on LinkedIn, you usually do
hmm
pretty well.
Yeah, I really feel like LinkedIn depends on the industry that you're in. I don't think LinkedIn works for everyone, just like I don't think TikTok works for everyone. And that's one thing that I really um, try to get through to my own clients is, your target market is probably on a certain platform, and that doesn't mean that they're on the other one. Um, so LinkedIn is, especially if you are business to business, that is an incredible place to meet other business owners.
Thank you.
And use it to where don't just go on with don't go on
Preach.
any of these platforms and just post. That's not what you're there for. These things are called social media, so that means that you need to be social and you need to make those connections and network with people even online. So if you go over onto, on LinkedIn or any of them really, but on LinkedIn, go onto other industries or other people and your target market or your industry or other industries and like and comment on their pages to make those connections, create relationships online. Um, and LinkedIn really is a great place for that if you are going business to business. It can be a very powerful place to meet other business owners. It's a great place for networking, but you have to go out there and actually make those connections with people. Don't just share things and like things and expect people to come and buy from you. You have to go out there and make that first connection sometimes.
Hmm. Um, Something that I realize is yeah, I'm the guy that posts all the time, and I forget to go in. And I think Gary Vee said it, and I know this information. This is what's wrong with having so much information in your brain all the time, and not creating focus and scheduling. Is he said, you got to schedule time to actually care on social media.
Yeah.
Take
Yep.
a half an hour out of your day instead of just thumbing through just to see what everything's going on and be nosy. Actually like and comment and have those relationships, because if all you do is ask, um you're going to become an ask hole, right? And people
Yeah.
don't want to spend any time on your page. But if you can
Right.
go give and then ask, it's a deadly combination, folks. Ooh, it's
Exactly.
good stuff.
And it doesn't take a lot of time. If you go on there and you spend 15, instead of getting on social media and going down the rabbit hole, take
uh,
15 minutes and be
yep,
intentional with that time. One
intentional.
of my very first clients, she was like, "Well, how am I going to have time to go in there and make those relationships with people?" And I'm like, "So I don't know, when your kid is in the bath, you're not doing anything. So you're just scrolling on social media anyway while your kid is taking a bath. So why don't you go on there intentionally and go and like and comment on a couple of people's posts and go and search, I mean, everyone has a dream client or people they would like to work with. And so why don't you go seek some of those people out? Go into that hashtag or that industry's pages and start making those connections and relationships with those people you want to work with
Mm.
and like and comment and share their stuff because that's gonna start creating conversation on their pages and it's gonna bring them back to your own pages. And with the magazine, when I was starting to take over with that one in particular, I couldn't just hop in there and be like, "Hey, this is me." It was kind of like I'm gonna transition me in and transition the other girl out. It's kind of the way that worked. And so the first thing I started doing, because they already had posts scheduled, I started going in there and going to the people that they're already partnered with and they're already running ads with them, going and liking and commenting on all of their stuff, and then industries or businesses that we are wanting to reach out to and build a better relationship with, start liking and commenting on that stuff as well.
Hmm.
And that was so powerful. And even a week in, now we have people that are coming to us saying, "Hey, I saw you do this and this for so and so. How can I partner with you now?" And that's
Hmm.
literally from building connections and relationships through social media. And that's where the magic of social media happens. It's not just posting random things for the heck of it.
I think it's gold. I think a lot of people just got their eyes opened. Bam, they're seeing social media in a new light, and I really appreciate that. Where can we find Carol?
So I am on I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook mostly. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. Dream Life Marketing is where I'm at on Instagram and Facebook.
So to take this out, I want to touch on one last subject. I hear this all the time from people that are growing their business, right? So I do business coaching. I've mentored a lot of people in business, and they'll say, "Hey, this person sounds great when it comes to social media. It sounds like they know everything that they need to know, and they could really help me. Why don't they have any followers on their Facebook? Like, why isn't their social media? Why don't they have 500,000 followers? If they're so great, why don't they have that?" And I know what the answer is, but can you touch on that so we can get some of these business owners to calm down on the hate a little bit?
I would say it's kind of like the cobbler and his son. The cobbler makes shoes and fixes shoes for everyone else, but his son has no shoes and walks around barefoot. And I'll be completely honest with you. If you look at my social media, you'd be like, "This girl is not a social media manager. She doesn't manage her own." How can so? Um, I focus so much on my clients that I don't make a lot of time for myself. That is one thing that I'm working on in 2023 is growing my own business as well as other people's. But if you see someone and you feel like you connect with them or you think that they could help your business out, ask them to see what they're doing for other people and what other people's their clients' work looks like, and ask them, what sales they've brought in and things like that, what they've done for them. Which this is also a great reason why people should be getting testimonials for their business because you're not fixing your own house, you're fixing other people's houses, like you when you were in the contracting world. And so those testimonials and showing other people's work is where you're really going to see if that person is a true fit for you.
Hmm.
And so ask them for a portfolio, ask them for testimonials, things like that. And don't always judge someone just because they have 500 followers or something like that. Because especially working in the real estate industry, we've because of the social media and the things that I've helped them do, we've closed millions of dollars.
That's such a great answer. And I love that you touched on it. And I think people need to stop throwing shade and hate towards social media, folks. And I know that we could be talking about this subject for the next 2 hours. Unfortunately, our time has come pretty much to an end, but I know we'll have to have you back on the show because this is an endless subject and it's always evolving. There's so many avenues, and we can get into ad spend, and we can get into ROAS, and we can get into pixels, and we can get into so many things. uh, but that's for another show, guys. I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate your insight, and I appreciate your friendship. Thank you so much for being a part of my life.
Yeah, I thank you so much for having me on here. We've talked about it for a few months now, even before you started the entrepreneur theory, and it's been pretty amazing to see what you're doing here. And I absolutely love what your plan is and what your vision is with the entrepreneur theory. And I really feel like it's something that us entrepreneurs need And entrepreneurship is so lonely, but I feel like you're giving a place and a community for us entrepreneurs to come and come together and learn from each other and really connect with each other. And as I bragged about you through this whole show, I've really valued your mentorship and friendship over the last few years too. And you've added a lot of value to my life, and now it's time to go add value to others.
Mm. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate you. And we'll have you on the show soon. And thank you, Carol. Have a good night.